Hi, everybody. Just wanted to share what's been happening with us this week, what's been going on. Shashi and I had a bit of a different week than we've had last couple of, for actually since the last 3 months. Um, we've been getting along so well and really interested in what others are doing and really each other are doing and really supporting each other. Except last week, um, I was really getting triggered by some of the stuff um, that I was hearing from her. I had a bit of a knee injury last week, and I didn't get up in the morning to get to my workouts, and in the evenings I was sitting on the couch watching some soccer games, uh, and Sashi seemed to be irritated by that, and she was always making comments about, why are you just sitting around? Aren't you going to go work out today? Uh, Comments like that, and those things were really starting to trigger me. I was getting upset, like, well, what's her problem? I'm just taking care of my knee. I'm relaxing. I'm not feeling that great, and but I really didn't know what was happening for her, and maybe you want to fill everyone in on what was happening for you, or what you were seeing.
Yeah, so we had been in a pattern of like 6 o'clock, alarm would go off, the Rocky theme song would come on, Rick would go into his power pose and wake up at 6, and I would feel this like flood of happiness and pride, like that he was waking up and keeping up with his routine. And so then from last week, it was like I'd hear the Rocky theme song come on. And there'd be no rustling in the bed. There'd be no movement. And then I'd hear the song go off. And then there'd be silence. And I'd be like waiting. Some movement or something might happen. And then after a few minutes, I'd be like, aren't you going today? Are you going to the gym today? You're not going? And then I'd hear silence and there'd be there was no response. So then I'd ask again, are you going?
And
And
I'd be getting more and more mad. Like, what does she want? Like, I'm trying to sleep.
yeah, so and my thing was like if I was getting that, if I had planned to go for a workout or a run at 6 o'clock and it was 6:05 or 6:10, and someone said to me, aren't you gonna go? I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm going, and thanks for the push, and that's exactly what I would want, is that push. But what wasn't happening is he wasn't telling me his knee was hurting and he didn't feel like going, and so there was no communication. So I was interpreting it as he's all of a sudden falling off track. 6:30 or 6:15, 6:20, 6:25 has come and gone, and he's just gone back and fallen off track. There was no communication as to my knees hurting and I'm in pain and I'm not feeling good. So we went through the whole week and it just got more and more, and I was being very impatient. By Wednesday, Thursday, I was like, oh my gosh, like I was really judging, like how could he just let all these days go by, all this work, and just let the routine flop. Because to me, that routine and the self-discipline is so important. And I was just like, having all these visions of, okay, that's it, the routine's gone and that high energy state is gone. And
Yeah, and the more she was questioning me about it, the more I I would back off from communicating with her, and I would get angry, and so what was really coming up for me was I felt like I wasn't useful. I felt like because of the knee injury, I wasn't able to do all the things I would be normally be doing, or be in the same mood, and I felt like I was being judged, and as I felt I was being judged, it put me right back into some of my childhood wounds where um, I felt some weakness in me, and all those emotions came back up to the surface, um, and so now I understood where my feelings were coming from, and Sashi and I worked it out.
Well, I think for me too, like when I see that your state is changing, rather than like go to you and try to see what's underneath it all, I will distance and go on my own. Well, I don't really need that energy, that low energy state, and I'm going to continue doing my routine, and I'm going to be going ahead with my goals and achieving them, and I will go into a state of I'm on my own, and I've always been on my own, and I don't need anybody. Like, I don't need anyone to do it for me. I will do it myself, as opposed to kind of trying to connect and find out what could be underneath the roots, because then I feel like, okay, if I'm going to ask questions, I'm not going to get a response, so then I don't want to harp. So then I would just go off and do my own stuff, do my own routines, do my own like growth things towards my goals, and then make my own plans. Like for the weekends, I made my own hiking plans and things like that. So that's kind of the state I go into. And then, yeah, so once we then reconnected and found out that Rick was feeling judged by my questions and I was judging him based on him falling off. Like, how could he just fall off and let all his goals just like slide like that? Because I wouldn't, like, that's something I would totally judge within myself, and I was judging him for that. And I was feeling impatient, and not, of course, not knowing about any of the knee issues and how painful that was. Like, I didn't really understand because he wasn't communicating that part of it to me. So that's the part that I think was missing. So I think, yeah, so going forward.
So what we both learned from this past week really let Sashi know what was happening for me, and why I wasn't my usual self, and that could have all, a lot of what I felt as by being judged and felt like I was being picked on could have been avoided quite easily, just by being open in that communication. But what also happened, and what also happened is I got to see the place Sashi was coming from, and what was happening for her as I was not being my regular self and not getting up and getting on with my day.
Yeah, so I'm somebody who would love to have that nudge if I wasn't doing something, because I'm very goal focused, very results oriented. So if I was falling off track, or needed that nudge to slip out of a warm bed to go for that hike, I'd be so appreciative of that, because I know how I'd feel at the end of that hike. But at the same time, what this has done for me, this fight that we had, it's been a good thing, because now I'm really working on my judgment of people. Because I judged Rick. I judged him as like being, falling off track, just, not being committed. That was a big thing for me, is like, he's not committed. And like, he's not all in. He made this commitment, he's not all in. And I was just judging. And so when I'm judging him, I'm also judging myself, because I would be judging myself if I had fallen off track, and I'd be all down on me. So this has been a huge realization for me. And since I've had this blind spot revealed to me about judgment, I've now embarking down a path of replacing judgment with acceptance, trying to accept all, love all, and it'll be a journey. But I spent last night, I spent in a very spiritual place, and there was a gong bath, which I've never done before, but it's about moving energy. I did a Kundalini yoga practice, and it was such a beautiful experience, and I felt such a connection and a oneness with all the people in the room and oneness with the universe. And I'm reading a book right now called The Judgment Detox. This has all happened since yesterday. So like I've made up my mind, okay, I'm dealing with judgment, and I'm just one of these people that kind of, okay, I'm dealing with it. I'm going right to it. And where's my soul taking me? And this is where it's taking me down this path. So now I see this fight that we had as a huge blessing, because now I'm going to grow from this, and I'm going to explore a side of me that needed work, and that's on my judgment of others and judgment of myself. So that aspect now is my focus.
Awesome. And I'm exploring that side of me that where what happens when I feel weak or when I feel like I can't do something. It really brings up some emotions for me, and some memories and some really emotions that where I don't feel I can be myself, be the strong, solid rock that I want to be for my family. So, and the lesson for me was that when I'm feeling like I'm in my wound, I actually really need to get with that pain and really feel through that pain, so I'm not avoiding it. I need to integrate that into my body.
So I think the important thing is that we've had this fight. Now we've moved past the emotional part of being in the fight, and now we can look back. Okay, this is what happened. This is how I reacted. Now, what can I take away, and how can I grow from it? And how can we all learn from the lesson? Because I mean, we've been in a relationship now, married almost 26 years, and we went through years of just having the same pattern, the same fights, the same things happening over and over and over. Rick would shut down. I would go at him with questions. He would distance. I would distance, and really nothing's happening, right? And how is that helpful in a relationship? So now we try and have like productive fight. So we had a fight. Now, okay, great. That's good, because now I learned something about myself. I can work on judgment. And Rick's learned that he needs to get with the pain from his childhood, so he doesn't have that childhood wound of feeling weak and helpless coming up. And he's going to...
And that way I'm not responding as my 12-year-old self.
Yeah.
And I can respond as the grown-up Rick.
Yeah, not little boy Rick. So.
And then we grow from there.
Yeah. So awareness is more than half of the issue, and then from that point on, it's just, okay, how do I deal with this? So thanks, hon, for triggering me.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.